I'm Pat Frew, Executive Director of the Covington Business Council, and welcome to Getting Down to Business. This is an interview show devoted to newsmakers in Covington and Kenton County who are transforming the business landscape. And my guest today is no exception to that. I'm pleased to be joined by Nancy Grayson, President of the Horizon Community Fund of Northern Kentucky, where Northern Kentuckians make a lasting difference in their own community. So glad you could join us today, Nancy.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Oh, we're glad to do it. I'm going to give a little bio here on Nancy. As president, Nancy is responsible for implementing the vision and strategic direction of Horizon Community Fund as set by the Council of Trustees, who we're going to be talking about in a minute. Those trustees work collaboratively with Nancy and with other community leaders to serve the community's needs. Nancy is a recognized leader in our community. She's served on numerous boards of organizations dedicated to improving education, promoting healthy family relationships, and preserving the natural resources and history of Kentucky. Nancy worked for the Northern Kentucky Education Council until last year, serving as Director of Strategic Initiatives. And she's an attorney by trade, too, which probably comes in very handy when talking about the details of how people use their charitable dollars to benefit the Horizon Fund. So, Nancy, first of all, tell us how the Horizon Community Fund of Northern Kentucky was formed.
About a year and a half ago, there were a group of leaders in the Northern Kentucky community who came together and started talking about what could we be doing more for our three-county footprint in Northern Kentucky with Boone, Campbell, and Kenton counties. And that region, as you know, comprises about 400,000 people. And it's really 22% of our MSA, the greater Cincinnati region. And we don't really have the same amount of resources being applied at that same level to our own local needs. And so Bill Butler with Corporex, Bob Zapp, formerly with Bank of Kentucky, Chuck Shepper, who is currently chair of Bexian Pharmaceuticals, and Will Ziegler with Ziegler Schneider Law Firm, they came together and served as the founders for this organization and talked with others in the community and said, what if we stepped up as Northern Kentuckians and came together to really provide an opportunity for people to give back and to make a difference, a lasting difference in our Northern Kentucky community. So they founded Horizon Community Funds.
Yeah. Give us an idea of what really essentially is a community foundation. What does that mean?
And it's such a good question because there are actually close to 800 community foundations in the nation, and they all look a little different. But at the core, they are the same, and that is that we're a charitable vehicle. We're a public charity, a 501c3, that allows people to pull their resources together, their financial resources, so that they can give back to that very specific local community.
Yeah. And what are the different types of funds that you have at Horizon?
We focus really on three different funds primarily, and I would start with our most flexible type of fund. That's the Community Impact Fund. It's an unrestricted fund. If you think about kind of grant-making funders and being able to provide more resources for community needs that are really known deeply now, but then also some unforeseen needs in the future. I know with the heroin epidemic 10 or 15 years ago, people probably wouldn't have guessed what a significant crisis that we're in right now. So those types of unforeseen needs can really be met by this unrestricted fund. And the beauty of the Community Impact Fund is that anyone can give at any level. So if someone is new to giving, if they're a young professional, if they're a young family, or if they're a tried and true philanthropist who's been giving for many years, we can accept gifts of any size. And that's the first type of fund. The second type that I would qualify would be the Donor Advised Fund. And that's where people who are donors like to decide where their funds go. So it's really like a charitable account where they're able to make a gift, they set up a fund, they get the tax deduction, but then they can make recommendations to grants for their favorite school or for a local church or another recognized charitable organization. And then finally, the designated fund is really the most focused of the three funds, and that's for very specific causes. So it could go to a charity of choice, or it could go even to a program within a charity. And when the donor sets up that fund, that allows them to provide support for that charity for perpetuity.
Yeah. As you described the different funds, you talked about some of the uses for those funds. You talked about heroin, you talked about education. What are the other array of community needs that are met through the Horizon Fund?
Well, at the outset, we did say very generally that we wanted to support health, education, the arts, reducing poverty, and also innovation and development, which is really kind of a catch-all for more of that community vibrancy, really strengthening our communities in Northern Kentucky. And so as we've been out talking, I've been on a world tour of sorts, meeting with different community leaders, nonprofit organizations, community members truly, who were talking about what are they hearing, what are some of the needs that they think are important, and really where are we seeing some of the deeper problems. And honestly, right now, there's a lot of conversation, of course, about heroin. There's another larger conversation that's happening on affordable housing and homelessness, which is pretty pervasive in Northern Kentucky. And that's something that's impacting people of all ages, students too. Also, another issue would be poverty, but really more specifically, how do we get people into jobs with livable wages? Beyond just getting a job, we need a job that allows them to have a skill set that they can develop and that they can be in a job that allows them to pull themselves up and to have more economic opportunity. And then education, as you mentioned earlier, there's a lot of focus on early childhood education and how can we make an impact earlier in their lives of those students as they grow and have a larger result towards the end as they start graduating and entering the workforce.
One of the great things about your job must be to be able to learn more and more about these problems and challenges that our community faces. Let's talk more about a couple of these things you talked about. You know, in Cincinnati, it's very much talked about the issue of poverty and how Cincinnati is one of the most poverty-stricken cities in the United States by all the metrics. How does Northern Kentucky contribute to that, or how is it different? How is poverty different in Northern Kentucky, maybe, than, say, within the confines of Cincinnati? Are there any differences there?
I would say yes, and mainly it's because of the makeup of our Northern Kentucky region. Because we have so many different cities, we have our 3 counties, we have all of these different municipalities and governments. Each pocket, each community looks a little bit different. So what might look different in particular in Covington or Newport in the more urban areas, poverty looks quite different when you get a little bit further out into suburban areas such as Erlanger or Florence, and then on top of that, even further out into the rural communities, because social services and other support organizations may be located in different places in those jurisdictions, and different groups are working together to try to solve those problems, but it looks different depending on that community. So it's diverse, but when we can find something that really works for most of those communities, if not all, then that's something that we can really move the needle on.
Yeah, and you hear a lot in Cincinnati where the common thought before was that poverty existed in the urban core.
Yes.
On our side of the river, it might be the river cities, but it has spread a lot to the suburban areas as people of lower incomes have gravitated out from the urban cores that are on both sides of the river. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think something else that's relevant would be transportation and access to paying jobs. And so if you live in a certain community, where are those jobs located that are helping them to have more prosperity? And so how do you help a family where they can be in a good school district, where they can have access to jobs? And we want all of our schools and all of our families to be thriving. And so how do we make sure that it is really tailored to meet the needs of that particular community so that we can strengthen all of those different institutions beyond just the family level?
Right, and let's talk about jobs, because this is a business program,
yes.
And we're obviously at the Covington Business Council very interested in filling a lot of these jobs, and we have a critical need in not getting many jobs filled in the community. Plus, we want people to be self-sustaining as they, get out of school and start living on their own. So that's something that you're paying a lot of attention to, I imagine.
Absolutely, and we have a lot of momentum right now. There seems to be this general attitude where there's more alignment that's starting to occur among different groups that are focused on workforce issues. The Chamber, Covington Business Council, obviously, right. Triad, Northern Kentucky Area Development District, the Workforce Investment Board. So different groups are doing different pieces. They have different roles, but coming together to make this beautiful tapestry a stronger foundation so that we're able to address what our key industry needs are, and we can make sure that we get more people into that workforce pipeline. Some
of our more non-traditional education groups are very involved in this too, like Gateway Community and Technical College, Sullivan University, and all those groups. It's exciting to see how these groups are kind of pulling together.
It is, and I think when we're able to work together and think of things in a different fashion, it becomes, quite frankly, a model for the nation, because we are so diverse and because we have so many different unique opportunities. When we can bring something together as a region, then we can achieve better outcomes together.
Talk a little bit more about how the Horizon funds Horizon Fund is unique as a community foundation.
And this has been one of the more fun parts of building a new organization. Each community foundation looks a little bit different. As I mentioned there, Lexington has a community foundation. Louisville, Cincinnati obviously has a greater Cincinnati foundation. And so what each of those look like depend on the community that they represent. This opportunity for us in Northern Kentucky allows us to consider not just fundraising and where that money goes, but also what is our role as a leadership organization? How do we help connect people better in the community? One thing that we learned, we downloaded from the IRS database, the number of nonprofits in our 3-county footprint is over 1,200.
Oh my goodness.
And some of those are very small. Some
Yeah.
are PTOs or they're family groups that are fighting very significant health issues or other causes that are passionate about. But thinking, how do we connect people more to what work is being done with many of those different organizations? How do we help share their stories? How do we get people involved to giving back, not only through us, but also directly to those charities? So we're creating a movement, really.
That's amazing that there are over 1,200 charities, because I know about 10 years ago, United Way actually made an active effort to basically kind of get to remove some of the nonprofits that really weren't meeting standards that needed to be met to move the needle in whatever particular area they were in. So even though there has been a culling of nonprofits in our region over the years, we still have 1,200 charities.
Right, and that doesn't even count those statewide groups that have programs locally or those that are physically located in the city of Cincinnati or the state of Ohio or Indiana.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit more about some of the goals of your organization.
Sure. For the monetary aspect, we are a fundraising group. We have set a goal from the outset of raising $50 million in 5 years. We're excited to say that we've made tremendous progress in these first 7 months. We're at over $10 million that we have raised that are in assets under management. And so we think that we can maybe get to that $50 million more quickly. Most of those funds, however, are really focused on the donor restricted, so those donor advised or designated funds. So we're really trying to swing for the fences and raise some more money for that community impact fund. So we're making progress. We have a $5 million campaign for the next several months that we're really trying to push and get more money to help seed that pool so that we can start granting money out. So that's one of our larger goals. The other goal that I have personally is to help engage more people into the work of the community, meeting the needs, whether that's serving on a board, if you've never stepped up to serve on a board before, having younger leadership step up and become more involved and learn what it means to actually give back. So it's a little more intangible, but it would help us to really strengthen the fabric of our community.
That's great. It's time for us to take a short break. So you're watching Getting Down to Business. I'm your host, Pat Frew, and I'm joined by Nancy Grayson, President of the Horizon Community Fund of Northern Kentucky. We'll be right back.
There are those who dedicate themselves to a sense of honor, to a life of courage, and a commitment to something greater than themselves. They have always defended this nation and each other. They still do. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Hello. Yes. Can I ask a few questions about the apartment on Park Street?
What was your name?
My name is Juan Hernandez.
It's been rented.
Oh, it's gone. Hello, my name is Sanjay Kumar. I am calling about the apartment on Park Street.
It's not available.
Not available? Hello, my name is Tyrone Washington. I'm calling about the apartment on Park Street.
Just been rented.
Hello, I am Chen Ling. My name is Khalid bin Ali. I'm Tuan Vo. Hello, my name is Moshe Goldberg. I use a wheelchair. It's gone. Not available. All right. Thank you. Yes, hello, my name is Graham Wellington. I'm calling about the apartment for rent on Park Street. Is that still available?
Yes, it is.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
Really?
Housing discrimination is illegal. If you think you've been a victim because of your race, color, national origin, sex, religion, disability, or family status, call us. Fair housing. It's not an option. It's the law.
Welcome to Getting Down to Business. We're going to continue our interview with Nancy Grayson. Nancy, how are you connecting with young professionals with the fund? I know you started to talk about that a little bit earlier.
Yes, and it's a big goal that we have to make sure that we're thinking about future generations and how they're becoming involved with our community foundation. And my hope is really to make it more organic, something that is natural, it's not forced. So we have started a new community accelerator group that we're calling it for this volunteer group of young professionals, also others, but it is more skewed towards young professionals. We want to be open to everyone. But this ability to have them share what it is that they're passionate about. We had a planning meeting to start talking about what are some of the issues that they're hearing about. I think you would find these interesting. Volunteerism was something that they were very interested in. How do they have the skills and the tools to equip themselves to become better board members, volunteers, and how do they even give back when you're thinking about raising money or giving donations. They were also interested in affordable housing, which is a topic that I've heard a lot when I've met with other community leaders. And then regional identity came up, which I thought was very interesting. They wanted to know what charitable organizations are out there that are really working to help us bond together as a community. So we're going to spend some more time thinking through that. We'll be having quarterly gatherings throughout the year over the next several years that will be open to the public for people of any age, but really allow that steering committee to help drive that conversation so that we can see what good work different nonprofit organizations are doing, so that as they become more engaged, those young professionals then can get in that habit of giving back and doing something that they feel very committed to.
How many nonprofit organizations have you met with, and how are you engaging those groups?
I've met with probably close to 100 nonprofit organizations in the first 7 months now, since we've launched. And then I've also tasked one of my team members who is in charge of marketing and communications with helping to share those stories. So making sure that as she liaises with those different nonprofit groups to find out how can we equitably kind of share what it is that they're doing that might be of interest to the community so that we're better connected, we're better informed, and that they can be more engaged in the work.
What about companies? How are you engaging with them, and give us some examples of that?
Sure. I've been meeting with leaders of different companies to hear more about what their charitable giving habits are. It's something that I think is on the minds of many corporate leaders right now with this advent of more socially responsible investing and really partnering with companies and buying products from companies that have a mission focus and having better results from their employees when they're giving back and when they're also allowing for perhaps volunteer time. You see the companies that are stepping up and asking, what else can we do in the community? So we're building relationships right now to help keep them informed with what's happening. Many of them are at the table, but hearing more about their vision for what we could be doing together. So seen as partners, as we would with our donors and our nonprofit organizations, to make sure that they're able to come together and bring resources together for their own causes. One way that they can do that is to, if they wanted to open, as I mentioned, a fund, a designated fund for a particular charity, they could pull their money together and help give to a cause or multiple causes through a donor advised fund. So there are different ways that we're able to flex what charitable vehicles we have, but it needs to be reflective of what it is that their own personal corporate culture is.
You must feel like you could write a book from all the different groups and stakeholders that you've interviewed in the community. How can people help make a difference and impact some of our local community needs?
Well, I think one of the easiest ways would be obviously to follow us on social media and hear about some of the exciting events that we have coming up. We see ourselves holding not only the Horizon Community Accelerator public gatherings, but we'll be partnering with different groups to have conversations with the community and to provide opportunities on how do you get more connected with fighting heroin, or how do you get more connected with helping to provide social services in a particular area. We're also willing to meet with people one-on-one if they want to learn more about how do I give back. We can create programs that are tailored to young families so that if they want to speak to their kids in a way that's very simplified and easy about how do I give and how do I create a pattern of giving, there are different ways that people can reach out to us and we can work with them to help tailor what it is that they're hoping to achieve personally.
Great. What are some of the general trends in philanthropy that you're noticing through all these discussions that you've had?
And there's been some good research that's been done. Giving USA is a group that completes a survey annually, and they talk about general national giving trends. There are some trends from the 2016 survey that came out a while ago. I guess it's been about a year at this point, where they're saying individuals actually comprise 72% of philanthropic giving, and then foundations, and then you see corporations and others in smaller amounts. All levels of giving have increased. That happened in that survey for the 2016 year, with the exception of bequests. But they anticipate that actually those giving through, wills and other documents that you might have when you pass on to your family different amounts of funding, that there is this large oncoming generational transfer of wealth that's getting ready to happen. It's starting to happen now. And in the next 10 years even, in the Northern Kentucky Area Development District's footprint, we could reap $9 billion in transformational change, really, that's happening through that generational transfer of wealth. And so could we capture a portion of that? And I think we'll see some of that money being freed up, so you'll see probably more bequests that are going and granting out money through wills and other documents, as I said, to help impact the community. And so our hope is to make sure that we can empower individuals as well as organizations and businesses to give. And I think that the Tax Reform Act also will have some impact on that, in terms of how are people, if they have more money in their pocketbooks after they've been improving their positions perhaps after the recession, how are they able to give more? And so we're seeing more giving in that space. But with tax reform, we have to also consider how are organizations selling their own mission and really connecting with people, because at the end of the day, it's not the tax deduction that is causing people generally to say that's why they give. It turns out it's their own personal values and also causes and organizations that they care the most about. And so statistically, that's why they're giving.
Let's talk about how the community fund works with professional advisors such as financial planners and attorneys.
We've been meeting with many different accountants, attorneys, financial managers, financial planners to talk a little bit about what are they hearing with their clients. Are there opportunities for us to come and speak with them or meet with them one-on-one and talk about what their needs are, so that we can be really a charitable concierge, not only for those firms, but also for their clients. And so one thing that's emerging, a lot of that community is talking about how do we explain what's happening with this tax reform that's been passed. What is that? How does that impact your own personal giving? And we can be there to kind of help talk with them. How do we become more flexible and available to them to help them achieve their own personal financial and charitable goals?
Yeah. Where can people find out more information about the community fund? Your website, you talked about social media. It sounds like you're having sessions all the time to meet with people so that they can learn more.
Absolutely.
People that maybe haven't been engaged yet.
Yes. And so I think the website's probably the easiest place, www.horizonfunds.org. And that way you can see events, news that's happening, also any future gatherings that we have, as well as connecting with us personally. I'm an easy phone call away. The beauty of being a small but mighty team of three is that, we'll pick up the phone and we'll talk to you personally, and we'll come out and meet with you and hear what it is that you're hoping to achieve.
What was it that attracted you to this job to begin with?
I love the idea of being able to do something more than what I could do on my own individually for the community. The real beauty of this community organization is leveraging the power of bringing resources together collectively in every size, and to be able to do something as a region, something that is unique to Northern Kentucky. We have a sense of pride. We're part of Greater Cincinnati. We're part of the state of Kentucky, but we're very unique in many regards too. That's different from both of those larger entities. So for me, doing something that's uniquely us, it's uniquely Northern Kentucky, and that we can make a bigger difference because we're doing it together. That's why I love my job.
There is, as you said, there are many types of foundations out there. Even the Greater Cincinnati Foundation has a Northern Kentucky fund. But
They do.
I guess what you're finding is you're finding some areas where you can meet some untapped needs that sources like that and many similar ones cannot.
Absolutely, and I think that was the idea the founders had, that we have some unique needs that maybe we could step up and help answer the call to make sure that we're addressing them, and we're doing it shoulder to shoulder with our own neighbors.
Yeah. What has anything surprised you or your board of trustees in terms of the reaction to what you're doing or some of the responses that you're getting from people?
It's been wildly positive, and I expected it to be received very well, but I'm surprised at how quickly people are understanding that this could really transform what we're doing, not just now or in 5 or 10 years, but for the long haul, so that we could look back and say, wow, in 2017 there were some great things that happened, and that's when Horizon Community Funds began.
That's great. How can people find out, how to make donations or, anything else that you'd want to share, Nancy, about the fund?
Thank you. Right now, people can donate online if they wish to. We have donate buttons on all of our pages, so wherever you land, if you Google us, go to our website. We also will have different events and opportunities where people can give by attending or by making a donation. But again, I'm always willing to sit down. I'm only a phone call away. So if folks want to look on the website and give us a call or send us an email, we're happy to answer and talk with them about how do we get them involved by giving.
Great. Give us, just wrapping up, give us that phone number and the website address again.
Sure. The website address is www.horizonfunds, plural, .org. And my personal number at office is 859-757-1552.
And your cell number? No, I'm not. No,
you
we
can
won't
find
give
that on
number.
the website too.
Oh, okay, that's great. So, Nancy, thank you very much.
Thank
this
you.
is really entertaining and a lot of great information. I didn't even know a lot of the things that you've been talking to people about and discovering. So I can't wait to hear more about it. Thank you again so much.
Thank you. Well, we appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah. Our guest today was Nancy Grayson, president of the Horizon Community Fund of Northern Kentucky. Nancy, we appreciate her being here. I also want to thank the folks at TBNK for making this show possible. Please let us know here at the station how we can serve you more. If you've got great ideas for guests, let them know. We don't have a monopoly on ideas for people to come on the show. Also, don't forget the Covington Business Council website. You can find out about a lot of our upcoming programs, including our weekly CBC Connects. It's a networking group that meets every Wednesday morning, 8:30 to 9:30 at the Gateway Thai Building at 516 Madison. No need to register. You can just show up, go on our website to get all the details of that event and many others. Our website is www.cbcky.com. That's all our time for today. Thank you for joining us for Getting Down to Business. I'm your host, Pat Frew. We'll see you next time.